Welcome to MD Source, helping you become a more informed you when it comes to your health. With a mission to share the most accurate and up-to-date medical advice and tips for healthy living, MD Source has conversations with real doctors and medical professionals who are the experts on the topics you want to know about. Today's special guest, Rae Ritke, talks about acupuncture and how it fits into traditional Western medicine. And now, here's Morgan Hare.
This is Morgan here with MD Source and the Heirs Foundation, and I'm here today with Rae
Ritke,
who does acupuncture. And Rae, tell us something about your background.
Okay, well, I got into acupuncture. I always warn my patients that I got into acupuncture because I actually got acupuncture. I was, many years ago, I was in California, and I think at the time I was having PMS, and I was stressed, and, I just wasn't feeling good. And I started getting regular acupuncture. And if all of a sudden my cycle got regular, my pain went away, I noticed I was sleeping better, my digestion was better, I think I lost a couple pounds. I'm like, what is this stuff? This is pretty amazing. And geek that I am, I ended up starting to studying it, and I just fell in love with it. Not only the medicine, but my bachelor's was in philosophy, and I just loved the philosophy of the medicine. I loved how they looked at health, I looked at how they looked at healing, and I found it to be really beautiful and quite moving, actually. So that's how I got started.
Then how did you train? What was your training like?
Long. So training for acupuncture, people ask me this, I go, what is it, like a 6-month program? I'm like, no, try at least 4.5, 5 years. It's quite a rigorous program. So in California and Florida has the most rigorous training. In California, you can be a primary care physician and be an acupuncturist. So it's quite a long training. We get trained in both Western medicine and Eastern medicine. So we get trained in anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, along with all the Eastern traditional patterns and ways that the body heals and handles things. So it's quite a long process.
And what is acupuncture?
Well, it's magic. It's quite remarkable. So I guess, the kind of dry example as well, we find points in the body and we insert these fine needles in the points, and this moves energy or moves energetics in the body and helps the body to heal. That might be a very basic explanation of it. But I would say that acupuncture is working many times, although I think in Western medicine we're seeing more and more of this. It's working in systems and energetics that we're just starting to learn about in the body. But ultimately, if I was going to make it even simpler, it's helping your body do what it already wants to do, which is heal. Your body's constantly trying to heal, and acupuncture is just like a really good boost to help it do that.
What's the origin of acupuncture?
Well, it originates, so they'll say it's like several thousand years old. Well, the philosophy in the book, the main book that it comes from, is called the Neijing, and that was compiled or written, some say around 400, 200 BC, somewhere in there. And that book is the kind of where the I want to say the philosophy, or the kind of the whole idea of how the body and the structure of the body and how we should treat it. Interestingly, in that book, one of the most important aspects or principles is balance. They believe that balance is the way to health and wholeness, and balance is the way to longevity. And in most Eastern cultures, longevity is the key, like to be able to live long. So balance is kind of the main system there. So that's kind of where it came from, and then it evolved and changed, because now I'm using, let's say, a 34 gauge tiny little filiform sterile needle. They weren't using that 1,000 years ago, right? So it's evolved from there, but that's the main source of the information.
And is it Chinese in origin, or are there other cultures that do acupuncture?
Well, acupuncture is in many cultures. There's a Korean style. There's a philosophy that comes from India. There's even, I was telling you earlier, there was I'm not saying this correctly. In the Alps, they discovered a body from several thousand years ago, a while back, and it was very well preserved, and he was a hunter. And they found that he actually had tattooed on his body points that were acupuncture points. So it seems that whether the philosophy, this idea that there were certain points on the body that when you pressed or you somehow put a pressure or put a stone point or something on it, that it would actually relieve pain. So it was known in many different places.
And how does it fit with traditional Western medicine?
It fits very well, actually. One of the reasons that it's, I think, gaining, I don't want to say renaissance or gaining attraction is because it's a relatively low-cost, low-invasive, and very effective treatment. So one of the areas that it's being used to a great degree is pain management. Because right now we've been using narcotics, or we've been using medication for pain management. Well, that doesn't always work very well. So, for example, acupuncture can be highly effective for pain management. We were talking earlier about chemotherapy. So chemotherapy induced side effects can be really difficult, right? So you get nauseous, you get fatigue, you get neuropathy, you get tingling in your hands and feet, and a lot of times that will stop people from wanting to continue their treatment. And they found that acupuncture is highly effective at helping relieve some of those symptoms so that people will continue. And one of the things with chemotherapy, for example, so you could give someone an anti-nausea drug, but they're already on so much medication, do you actually want to give them another drug? So if you can find a solution that doesn't require another medication, it actually is really positive. And people get really positive effects. And it helps them to continue their treatment, which is the goal. The goal is not to do either or. I think the best, I believe in prudent use of all medication, all things, they're all gifts, and that we use it all. And so it's a nice complement to help you continue your treatment.
So you said that it works well with chemotherapy. What about radiation?
Same. Well, the neuropathy a lot of times will come from the radiation. So all the side effects are the things that you might have, yeah. I wish I could help with the hair loss. That would be my, if I could find a magic point for that. But yeah.
So I know that you insert a lot of needles into people's bodies.
Well, that depends on the treatment, but yeah.
Okay, but how do you know where to insert the needles?
Well, that's one of the reasons you go to school. You learn the philosophy. But if you go to a Chinese medicine practitioner or an acupuncturist, two of the things that they might do is they'll take your pulse, and then they'll tell you to stick out their tongue. And you're like, why am I sticking out my tongue at this person? But two of the systems that we use is we diagnose by tongue, and we also by looking at the tongue and seeing what the tongue is. And then also we diagnose through the pulse. So the interesting thing about the tongue is the tongue is actually the beginning of the alimentary canal, so it does tell you a lot. It tells you if there's puffy, if there's things. And then sometimes we'll use palpation. We'll kind of feel up and down the point. Is there a point tender? Is there a point that's hot? So there's many different ways of finding whether the right point's for you.
Does it hurt?
It's one of the top questions I get asked. Usually no. I always say if you go in and you get acupuncture and something really hurts, you got to let them know right away. We're using such tiny, tiny needles that I have the time I needle someone and I go, okay, did you feel it? And they go, yeah, barely, or I didn't even feel it. And I go, well, you just had acupuncture. Now, sometimes depending on your practitioner, there is something that we call dachi, where you want to get the energy in the point. So they might manipulate the point. But that type of what you'll feel sometimes is a sensation, or you'll feel heat, or you'll feel some energy in the point. But now again, it's practitioner. Some might want to get more to chi, some less. But overall, pain is not something that you should be feeling during acupuncture.
So there are at least 365 acupressure points, one for each day of the year, I guess.
Yeah, actually, there's a very strong tie with acupuncture and astrology if you go back, but that's a whole other subject. Yeah.
And how long do you leave the needles in?
Again, that depends on your what we're treating you for and what it's for. It can be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. With kids, sometimes they'll leave them in, just put them in and take them out. It can be very quick. I tend to leave needles in a little longer. That's just my style for what I treat, so sometimes 40 minutes. I like people to really be able to relax and really get a good rest in there as well, but it will depend.
Is it safe?
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons that I think it's such a good adjunct to complementary therapy right now. Again, you want to get a trained practitioner. That's really, really important, right? But certainly you want a trained surgeon too, same thing. But I think they did a meta-analysis of 10,000 treatments, and the worst thing that happened was a bruise. So if you get a good practitioner, a good deal of our training is where and how to needle, the depth of the needle, where, and that's very important. But no, it's very safe. Yeah.
Any side effects?
No. Again, if you want to always tell your practitioner. So if you go, they usually would do a pretty in-depth beginning intake. And one of the reasons is because a lot of times in Chinese medicine, things that will connect that may not connect in Western medicine. So for example, I was interviewing someone the other day, and we realized that all their symptoms had been on the left side of their body. What about that? So in Chinese medicine, we do something about that. Like, oh, hey, we even that out. Other things as well. You'll find things are connected. So usually, so for example, if you're taking corticosteroids, you'd want to let someone know that because that might cause bleeding. And so they might needle a different way, or they might be more careful. Sometimes people, they have a history of lightheadedness, or they're on a medication that might make them dizzy. You'd want to tell them that, because then the practitioner will be careful, like how you get up or whatever. But for the most part, no.
So that leads to a good question. Do you take a history before you start to do?
Yeah, most people will complain. They go, "Why is this history so long?" Especially in New York, people are, they want to go in and go out. But part of the reason we do that is because acupuncture is holistic. The main philosophy behind it is that everything is interconnected. And this is also in Western medicine too. We have this beautiful thing now of the gut biome. So now everyone's taking probiotics because they started to realize that the gut and the health of the gut was affecting a lot of other systems in the body. So yeah, an intake can be sometimes pretty, comprehensive. But part of it is because we're also trying to find the root of what the thing is. We're not just trying to treat your cough. We're trying to find out where is the cough actually coming from, for example.
Right. So can you do it before you have a mastectomy or any kind of surgery?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Yes, absolutely. It's really good before a surgery, just to calm the nerves, to get the body healed. And post-surgery, it's very good for helping with reduce inflammation, clearing out any anesthesia, and just helping the body to heal. I always ask my patients, and usually this is already done, the physician will give the okay. You always want to ask your physician. And usually what a physician will say, and we don't anyway, they'll say, yes, just don't needle near the area, which I don't, you don't. But yeah, it's very, very helpful for people to help kind of bounce back after surgery, for sure, on the other side.
So what can you expect from having acupuncture done?
A couple things. So hopefully you'll start feeling reduction of your symptoms, if not in the first session, the first couple of sessions. And then a lot of times what people will find is they'll find that other things start improving as well. So let's say they come in, their back's really hurting. Then I'll get a note the next day. They go, gosh, my back's hurting a lot less today. And boy, did I have the best night of sleep I've ever had, So remember, we're trying to create balance in the system, and that we find that when you help create balance or homeostasis in the system, a lot of other things the analogy I feel is almost like, we put these needles in and the body kind of goes, oh, thank you. You gave me what I needed. Now I can just run and do what I want to do. And the body just starts doing a lot of backlog. Oh, I've been wanting to get this done. So, thanks for giving me the opportunity.
So explain homeostasis.
Oh, homeostasis. Okay. So in the body, our bodies are just so miraculous. They just stun me at what they're doing for us every day. So every day when we're happy and we're going along, all these systems are working. So your immune system, your digestive system, your hormonal system, they're all balancing out. So they're we need a little more of this hormone. Oh, we want to have a little bit of less of this hormone. And so when we're happy and we're healthy and we're balanced, those systems are running along and you feel great. So when we get sick, or let's say we get stressed, so you hear a lot of people talk about cortisol, the body is trying to create balance. So it'll add cortisol because it's trying to balance out an imbalance in the body. And that's what the body's constantly doing. So when it gets out of balance, that's when you start feeling symptoms. You start feeling, well, cortisol, they'll say, causes weight gain in the middle. The body's trying to figure this out. It's like, okay, I'm trying to solve this problem. So we're always trying to get the body back to that place of where it can really be in balance, because that's when it's happiest and that's when you feel the best.
So this is a little off topic, but does it help with weight?
Yes, it does actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed it help with weight is a couple things. It calms you down. And I think one of the biggest things, so the body, did you know you lose weight through breathing? It's actually through your breath. You expel fat gets broken down into water and you expel it. You think, you get rid of it in other ways. And so I find that the majority of times that especially women are gaining weight is stress and then postmenopausal or hormonal related. So yes, it actually can. And usually what I find it helps is it helps people to be relaxed and it helps them to live a more healthy lifestyle. Yeah.
Right. How many times do you need to do acupuncture to have it be effective?
I tell people that the majority of studies that are done with the effectiveness of acupuncture, it's usually been an 8 to a 12-week study, and it's been usually, 2 or 3 times a week. And I tell people that because I'll have people get off the table and they're like, oh, I still have pain. Well, you might be pain-free, but you'll wake up and you'll feel like 70%, wow, my pain's better. So you want to first I say you want to give it time. You might not need that much time. Rarely do I see people need 8 weeks to really see a difference. It depends. And then the amount of time you go, again, this is discussed with you and your practitioner in the beginning. Most people in New York I see maybe once a week, sometimes twice a week. Sometimes people will come in once a month for just a checkup. It really depends. The goal, though, is also to remember that we want to get your body working. This isn't like a medicine that you have to take every day. Right. We're hoping that, let's say you have seasonal allergies, we're going to try to get your system working so that you don't need to go every week. That maybe, I have people come in like maybe once in the season to kind of get, the system rebalanced again. But the goal is that your body's doing the work.
Right. And does insurance cover acupuncture?
Again, that depends on where you're at. Here in New York, it does. Quite a few policies do cover acupuncture. You would have to call your specific policy and see what it covers for. And I think that's also changing, I think, with people asking for it. And also insurances are finding that it's a good preventative. It actually, I think they actually did a study in Germany where they found that when people had acupuncture before knee surgery, they found a third of the people didn't need knee surgery, and they saved quite a bit of money. So now, you'll have to quote me on this, but I believe in Germany that you get acupuncture before you get knee surgery to see if you actually need it. So I think we're going to go in that direction of realizing it actually does help. But you have to check with your insurance provider. I do think also the VA, veterans, covers it sometimes as well. And believe it or not, the military is using acupuncture to help, especially with PTSD. So you're finding it in these little pockets, and I think you just have to go around and ask your particular insurance, and if not, lobby for it.
And how much does it cost?
Again, depends. I say in New York, a session somewhere around $100, $150 depending. But again, it depends on where you're at. I've seen $60, $50, $75. It depends on your area and where you're at. If money or finances are concerned, there's a couple things you can look into. Some larger cities have something called community acupuncture, and that's where it's kind of a group setting where you'll get treated, and it can be a little bit less. And another great one I actually did when I first started out is I went to a school. So a lot of acupuncture schools, they have clinics, and that's where they're training. And you can go and sometimes get really, really good care. I got great care at a school. And the people needling you are going to be, they've been in school at least 3 years, and you have a really good supervisor over, so that's another possibility.
Right. How do I choose a practitioner?
You want to look at their credentials. You want to make sure that, I think there's only about 2 states in the U.S. where there isn't any sort of licensing or requirement. So you want to check. You want to make sure that someone's been licensed. You want to make so. For example, in New York, in order for me to be licensed as an acupuncturist, I've had to gone through, I can't even remember, I think it's 3,500 hours of training, which is that 4.5 years of training. I have to take tests. I have to take at least, I think I took 3 or 4 board tests. So it's a pretty rigorous training that is necessary. And I know that's pretty true in the Northeast, most of the cities. In order to even be licensed, you have to go through a really rigorous training program. Right. So you want to look to see what your state's training program is, and you want to see someone who's at least licensed in your state.
Right.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get in touch with you, how would they reach out to you?
I think probably best through our website. If you Google Urban Wellness Acupuncture in New York, it'll come up. Our actual website is urbanwellnessnyc.com, and you'll find out a lot of information about acupuncture there. You'll find us there, and you can also just shoot us an email. I'm always happy to answer questions about acupuncture and treatment.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this podcast with me. I think this is really great information and will help people. And,
I hope so.
That's one of our aim is providing good information to people that can be helpful. So thank you very much for doing this.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
From the team at MD Source, here's to good health and to helping you become a more informed you. For the latest and most up-to-date information on health topics, visit mdsource.com. Drop us a line, sign up for our newsletter, and connect with us at mdsource.com.